is my best kind of show notes because we didn't touch one of them, not even one of them. I'm not sure which one is Paul Rudd and which one is Lane Green.
Final card here is the ultimate outcome.
Today is Take Your Dog to Work Day.
Oh, like Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Without further ado, his debut.
Sweet Caroline.
Everybody say hello to Sammy. Is that not good?
I'm just pausing so that you just are at the front of your screen.
I'm so enormously flattered.
Branding is not a bad blind date.
I'm gonna have to take a picture of this.
No, this is agape. This is love.
I really enjoyed this. You did do your homework. You asked great questions.
I'm flattered. Thank you. You just made my day.
Look at you! You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're insane. You're insane.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Corona TV. I am experimenting. Which is never a good idea, by the way. Or maybe it's a completely good idea. Innovating, trying to break things that aren't broken. Isn't that what the whole aim of our existence on this planet is to do? To try and figure out new ways to do new things as opposed to falling into a rut or into bad habits. Mr. Tom Morris is here. He says, tenaciously here and eager to learn. A little bit of a play on tenacity there. Well played, sir. Well played, sir. My mom is here. She's watching. Hi, Ma. And, Tom adds, life is experiment. Emerson, that Emerson, he and I were like two peas in a pod, let me tell you. So I'm coining a new term today. I'm laying claim to this term. It's called club casting. TM, trademark, Joseph Jaffe Incorporated. Club casting is simulcasting on Clubhouse. And so, we might do the after show on Clubhouse, but certainly what we are doing right now, this show right now is simulcasting on Clubhouse. Now, I didn't really tell anyone about it. I just opened up a nondescript room. I can see that 3 of our regulars are on right now. I didn't invite anyone. I didn't want to invite anyone. But if you are on Clubhouse and you want to actually listen to it live, you can. And we'll figure out some ways to, involve people at some point in time as well. But it's not being recorded on Clubhouse because you can't do that, and you're not allowed to do that. And anyway, so that's cool. And then at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, so in about 2 hours from now, I'm actually hosting Angus Nelson, my brother from another mother, previous guest on the show, is actually going to be helping me host my first Clubhouse room called Pivoting, the Reinvention of Careers and Life, where I will talk about 3 types of pivots, right? Pivot your corporate brand, pivot your personal brand, and pivot your life as well. So that's a little bit of additional Clubhouse information for you. And now it's let's get on with the show. Today is National Spouses Day. If you ever needed a reason to go to your spouse and tell them that you appreciate them and that you care for them and that you love them, then, if you needed it, then take this opportunity, for God's sake, and go and do that. So to my spouse, I appreciate you, I love you, and it's, how do you celebrate National Spouses Day? Not just to tell, but actually to do, and do means maybe help around the house or, offer to do something that you didn't do or don't do as a regular routine. That is how you can celebrate National Spouses Day. So happy National Spouses Day to all the spouses out there. But he's not my spouse, but he seems like we could have been also brothers from another mother. Why? Because of our dashing good looks. It's Ford Sakes. He's a business growth innovator, multiple best-selling author. You will find out more about him. This man is incredibly dynamic. And he truly has added, and it has been measured and quantified and audited, well over $1 billion, maybe multiple $1 billion to companies' bottom line. And this is not, as I said, an exaggeration. So Ford is my guest today. Tomorrow, Lauren Griffiths in the house. Super excited to talk to her about this post of hers on LinkedIn that went viral, almost 1 million likes and 30,000 comments when she changed her profile pic from the formal corporate one to the one that you see in front of you right now. Pulitzer Prize winner Daniel Golden on Thursday, and then our community show with Jason, Peter, Chad, David, and Judy. So come on over on Friday, and maybe we'll simulcast that one on Clubhouse as well. Chris Voss from the Chris Voss Show, happy birthday to you today. Also Manny Broad, one of my School of Rock bandmates, Jody Andrews. I used to work with her many moons ago. And then let's just go up and down the list. John Hanson, Kate Gardner, Jen Zahari, Gordon Patterson. I met him when he was the client at New Line Cinema. He had a couple of successes in his time, most notably a little trilogy called Lord of the Rings that he helped really bring to market using the power of innovation and using the power of digital. He also, his claim to fame, by the way, is that he was a juror in the Phil Spector case, a little known fact as well. Well, let's get into our seated soliloquy. And of course, you know by now that the seated soliloquy is going to be connected to my guest in some way, shape, or form. And today, that soliloquy is called tenacity. Ford Saeks uses an interesting word in tandem with innovation. The word is tenacity. I am intrigued for two reasons. Firstly, in 193 previous interviews, I'm not sure I've heard that word mentioned before, and certainly not as a central theme or an organizing concept. Secondly, the association and thus interrelationship with the word innovation. So let me focus on the former point first. One idea we have heard on Corona TV is the idea of resilience. Now, I believe that was Stephanie Crevens, if I recall correctly. So I went and looked up the difference or distinction, as Scott McCain would say, between these two ideas. As nouns, the difference between resilience and tenacity is that resilience is resilience, the mental ability to recover quickly from depression, illness, or misfortune, while tenacity is the quality or state of being tenacious, as tenacity or retentativeness of memory, tenacity or persistency of purpose. Now that was helpful in that there appears to be a couple of really interesting differences or points of departures, contrasting insights, if you will. Firstly, resilience appears to be about bad things, whereas tenacity is all about good things, negative versus positive. Secondly, the second appears to be backward versus forward facing, past versus future, right? So in other words, when we actually think of resilience, we're talking about backwards. When we think about tenacity, we're talking about moving forward. So if you put them together, you actually have this idea of rebounding from the back foot after adversity versus leaping ahead on the front foot towards success. We can take this learning to actually kind of the next level, but we can also see now why Ford so brilliantly attaches the two of them together. Tenacity is a coping mechanism. It's almost a cultural imperative. Moreover, it is a rubric that allows us the freedom and flexibility to explore the unknown, cope with uncertainty, deal with failure, and ultimately discover brave new worlds. Persistency of purpose is a great phrase, but ultimately what we should take away from this is twofold. Never give up, and make this your mantra, your life's mission, to be persistent in innovation. You'll often hear me talking about how all real entrepreneurs are masochists, but really when you love pain so much, it just becomes a pleasure. In this case, we might want to reframe the conversation to embrace the joy where idealism meets optimism. Look, success is never guaranteed, but it is inevitable. It's just a question of timing, which itself is a function of staying the course, endurance, and luck, where preparation meets opportunity. It's funny how much you can just extract from a single word. And trust me, once he comes onto the show, you'll see that we're just getting started. So please watch this video.
Ford Sakes has redefined the formula for business success. His efforts have helped companies generate a total of over $1 billion in sales worldwide. From startups to Fortune 500s, Sakes is widely recognized as a business growth innovator. With over 20 years experience ranging from retail to wholesale, authored several books, awarded 3 U.S. patents, and received numerous industry awards. Tenacity and innovation are what fuels this revenue-generating powerhouse. From grassroots to Google, Ford provides his clients with fresh perspectives and doable tactics to resolve marketing, operations, and growth challenges. As president and CEO of Prime Concepts Group Incorporated, Ford specializes in helping businesses attract loyal and repeat customers, monetize social media, and ignite creativity. We're happy to have him here with us today. So please give a warm welcome to Ford Sakes.
I love how your video basically introduces you, Ford.
Well, that's actually what that video's for. I mean, in the days when we're in front of stages with 500 to 5,000 people, it's much better to have a video like that because, unfortunately, my name's strange. And I've had people introduce me as Fred Sachs. And I'm like, no, it's Ford Sakes, like for heaven's sakes. So that's why I use the video. And I also think it helps the listeners and viewers and audience members, get a feel for, what they can expect to hear.
So what did you say, Sachs? It's better than Fred Flintstone. I'm trying to think of...
Sachs isn't so bad, but I hate to go live, especially when this is being recorded. The worst introduction I had was somebody had scriptively written my name, like in script, and instead of Ford, it looked like Fred, and instead of Sakes, instead of S-A-E-K-S, they wrote S-A-K-E-S, but it actually came out S-U-C-K-S. So they actually introduced me as Fred Sucks. So now I'm like, no, I'm not going to deal with that anymore. So no, it's Ford Sakes, but I'm happy to be here on this great topic. I love the beginning and how you open with tenacity and resilience. And so I'm really excited to be a featured guest here today and, take the conversation wherever it goes.
Well, listen, I mean, Fred Sucks is fine because it actually wasn't referring to you. It was referring to, the previous speaker.
Right. Yeah, it's like Fred Sucks, but here's Ford Sakes. Yeah, that was good.
I know. Well, it's like very, don't say that 3 times fast, especially when you've been drinking.
Right.
So I am thrilled to have you. But before we get into the meat of the discussion, you were meant to be on the show before, and you very rudely canceled because of this, miserable, pathetic, petty excuse of some virus called COVID. But in all seriousness, you look good. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling amazing. When your interview happened, I was 4 days into it and it just kept getting worse. So the first 4 to 5 days, it just kept getting consistently worse. And the energy wasn't there. The mental clarity wasn't there. And just the ability to be able to be a good guest. So, I was hoping I wasn't going to catch COVID just like millions of others. I'm sure we're hoping not to. But I came through it fine. I wasn't hospitalized. I wasn't, there's a lot of horror stories out there. I'm well. I believe I did what I could do to work on my immune system the best I could. And I'm glad to be on the other side of it, at least for this round, because I've heard, the antibodies only last so long and then you have an issue. But I'm just knocking on wood and affirming that I'm healthy and prosperous and just moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, so many still unknowns, right? With respect to antibodies. I actually heard the strains referred to today as the mutants.
I know
the mutants, and I was like, no, that's an X-Men reference. Please do not confuse X-Men.
Right, don't contaminate something that we love, right?
and Batman, because this did come from a bat. So anyway, enough of that right now. I have to tell you, my goal with this show is to try and embarrass my guests as much as I possibly can. And so I'm about to embarrass you by saying the word that just hit me over the head like a ton of bricks with you is the word humility. I've had over 190 guests, even your calls to actions and your promos, you're like, well, I won't mention it if you don't, and if the opportunity is right or only in the right place, I might mention it. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. He's coming on the show and he's doing this for me. You are giving as opposed to expecting something back in return. And so I want to just call that out and say, I appreciate you appreciate when you see it, humility, and someone that says, what can I do for you before I think about what's in it for me? Do you think that is the way of the world, or is it really the exception to the norm for the most part?
Well, everything we're talking about here is for educational purposes only. So, we're not giving you legal advice. I just want to throw out that little disclaimer since it's being recorded and live. But I think it really depends on someone's perspective and their mindset. I mean, I believe in the growth mindset. I believe that failure isn't fatal and that you're going to go through things and you're not going to be perfect. And there are too many so-called experts out there that claim perfection. They're an overnight success, and they're afraid to talk about some things that didn't work and the life lessons. Not everybody, okay? I'm not putting everybody in a box. And I would just say that, the humility comes from trying and failing over the years with 17 different businesses in multiple industries through multiple channels of distribution. I've invented products, I've marketed products, and I've helped thousands of clients around the globe with their marketing. And along the way, I've had really great mentors, some out of books that are no longer with us, and some that are close friends now that used to be people that I would never have thought I ever would have met in a lifetime. And now they're on speed dial. People I read their books before I even knew who they were. And so I think that the humility comes from realizing that it does. Yes, in my intro, it says, I'm responsible for $1 billion in sales. So what? I mean, there are way more people who make way more money than I do. It's not about comparing yourself, but it's about using whatever gifts you have. And I believe making the most of whatever you have. And that's really where the humility comes from, is knowing I'm not perfect. I will be careful not to drop any 4-letter words on this live show because we're on so many different networks and we're recording. But, I'm human and I stub my toe and I make mistakes. But it's not what happens to you. It's what you do about it. And that's really how I think.
I mean, there's so much to unpack there, but I'm just thinking, maybe you got the wrong brief here, because this actually is a legal show. We do dispense legal advice. It is now called Better Call Fred.
Right.
So, it's not Better Call Saul. It's
Right.
not Better Call Ford. It's called Better Call Fred.
Yep.
So we can dispense the legal advice. And if it's the wrong advice, just, go and sue Fred, because Fred sucks, right?
I think it's perfect to do that. And when you talked about giving, I've been a part of, as you have, hundreds of shows, podcasts, and now soon to be, Clubhouse. We're soon to be live on, Clubhouse, interactive podcasting, right? And there's all these mediums and there's all these things. And, it's just about delivering value, because we've all been part of those shows where, it's a pitch fest, they're doing it just to try to get new subscribers, or they're doing it just to, sell. And, as someone who is considered, a top marketer and salesperson, what I tell people is, look, it's not about selling, even selling in sales and marketing. If real true sales and marketing is just giving people enough information that they can make a good decision. So being a guest on the show, whatever you choose, and I took notes on the type of topics we might want to cover. It's about delivering value, because if you really deliver value, if you show up with a attitude of gratitude and you want to actually deliver, the money will come, the leads will come. People can Google my name, they can find me, so I don't have to push links and overly do it, especially on a show like this, where we're really here to inspire people to think about their personal and professional lives and just to enjoy the process along the way. So I love the humor and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in many respects, this, there is your humility, as you say, that comes from this idea of what is perfection or false perfection, but also that comes from your own life experiences of not just failing, but embracing failure. But I wonder also how much of this new humility is holistic, right? Is like this umbrella that absolutely is very much the gift of 2020, to be a little bit more, we've been brought as a people, as a species, we've been brought down to earth pretty shockingly. The best thing to do right now, after we dust ourselves off and, pick up the pieces and, nurse our bruises, is to figure out if there's a better way to kind of operate and conduct our lives and our business dealings, etc.
Well, I think that absolutely that's true. In the crisis of 2008, my business accelerated. When this crisis is here on us now, and we're not just talking about Corona, we're talking about the political, the everything, that you want to see in the media, or whether you agree, disagree, and you have an opportunity. If you're the type of person who believes that your environment controls you and that your environment prevents you, then you're going to have a very closed mindset. My mindset is, yes, all those things are real and they're happening. And, my employees, I have turnover. I interviewed someone this morning. I've got a new person starting next week. The challenges of 2020 last year, and whenever you're watching this replay, whatever challenges that, we don't even know at the time of this live stream or the recording, are going to be here. So I think it's an opportunity. I mean, when everybody, as a keynote speaker who speaks for a living, who then gets leads because I speak, a lot of my friends, when this happened, said, "Oh, my business is over. I'm in a bunker. I'm glad I have savings. The world's coming to an end." And I was like, no, it's not. And a lot of people had trouble transitioning to this live stream environment. Like we're live now on multiple platforms. We have cameras, we have good microphones, we have picture in picture, we can do things to create and make it interesting. But there were a lot of people who were excellent in the stage environment that didn't translate to the virtual world because they don't, like, we can't see 500 people in the audience. We know they're here. We can follow the chat, and hopefully people will comment in the chat and whatever platform you're on. But it's a different medium. So there's huge opportunities if you're open to them. I believe that everybody gets one or two really brilliant ideas every day. It's just whether or not you take the time to write them down and to pay attention to them. The opportunities are out there, but if you're constantly in a negative pattern, telling yourself that there aren't any opportunities and believing the doom and gloom, then guess what? I'm not a motivational speaker. For those of you that tuned in late, and didn't watch the intro, I'm a business growth speaker. People hire me to get their phone to ring, to build their subscriber list, to fix their digital footprint, to grow. Like, that's what I do. They don't hire me to handle people with tact and skill. Okay, I'm here to make the phone ring and to help you create a bridge between your value propositions and your market. But along the way, I've also learned how to be successful in business, which is why I can be on a show like yours, which is talking about personal and professional growth. I wrote a book called Superpower, and that was really because along the way I've learned some life lessons, and I'm not attributing every lesson that I've learned to me. I'm attributing it to the fact that success leaves clues, and a lot of these things that you hear me saying, you've heard before from other people at different times, but they become assimilated into your mindset, and they're really a part of me. Like, this isn't a book report today. This is who I am. You can Google me. You can look at my reviews. You can go and watch videos on Fortify.tv. Like, this is the real deal. And so I'm glad to see what your next question is going to be. But I would say, if you're sitting around in doom and gloom, stop that BS. And that's belief system, not the other word that you might be thinking. And if you have a belief that isn't serving you, well, guess what? Maybe it's time to get some new beliefs. So, if you're sitting around and you're thinking, I could do better than that, or I should be a guest. Well, if you're judging me right now, if you're watching the show and you're thinking, man, Joseph, you should have me, I'm better than he is. Or if you're in a career and you look at somebody doing something that you think somebody else isn't doing as well as you would, I would just tell you this: those people represent the thoughts and the feelings that you have failed to act upon. If you want a show, create a show. If you want to go live stream, create your own live stream. If you want to create your room on Clubhouse and go live on Clubhouse, then get on Clubhouse and learn whatever platform you need to do. But there's no shortage of opportunities, and I don't believe there's any shortage of money. And I'll let you unpack all this in a second, because I just hear all these people bitching and complaining about their lives, and I just think to myself, look, you're asking the wrong question. And if you're asking the wrong question, the answer doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you're asking the wrong question. It's the wrong question. You need to be asking better questions. Back to you, Joseph. I don't want to keep going. I want to hear what you have to say.
Man, I love that. That was just awesome. I was like, amen, brother. Brother sakes, hallelujah. No, I mean, listen, there was a lot. There was a lot in there, and you know, I wanted to ask you questions. There were things that I was jotting down as you were talking. I loved, but we'll get back to them soon. This idea of, it's not so much complaining, but just make it happen. Just figure it out. Just innovate. Why are people so stuck? Why are people so scared? Why are people, you know, doubling down on the cash stuffed under the mattress instead of being, you know, emboldened by this? I mean, I'm energized. Today I was more energized than I've been in a long time. Why? Because you're coming on the show, but also because I started to just experiment and think, hey, what if we do this? And then I'm texting you, and it just made me, it energized me with possibility, as opposed to hamstringing me with fear, the debilitation of what if it doesn't work? Who cares? Who gives a crap if it doesn't work? But you'll never know unless you try.
Yeah, you know, I don't think there's such thing as a money problem like I was mentioning earlier. I think it's an idea problem. And a lot of my prosperity consciousness came from great mentors. You know, one of my mentors that I listen to and believe in a lot is Randy Gage, randygage.com. You can check it out. It's not my website. And some people agree with him, some people don't. It's not about what you agree with. What I like about working with Randy over the years, and we've done a lot of projects together and published his products and done a lot of things, but he really helped me with my prosperity consciousness because, you know, growing up as an orphan, you know, no parents, no formal training. I have a 9th grade education. I did get a degree through the work program at my high school. And now I speak at colleges and universities and top 100 brands, and I'm on boards and I advise people, and it's an interesting journey. But how I got there was constantly working on personal growth and development. And so I would just say, as an action step, what is your success library for those people listening? You know, what are you doing to feed your soul, to feed your mind? And I'm not acting like these things don't happen and life isn't out there. I'm not acting like you should put your head in the sand and act like there's not problems going around. No, be real, but be a critical thinker. Like be willing to challenge your opinions and challenge your beliefs and have a free voice. I mean, you know, I'm not political at all, and I'm just going to say this, but I'm really concerned about free speech. Like, I'm worried right now that I will say one thing that'll get taken out of context and then ruin potential business in the future. And I never used to think that way even a month ago. And so now, you know, in the back of my mind, then I have to ask myself, okay, what do I have to unpack there? Right. But, you know, I want to just encourage you to take responsibility for your own success, create a success library, and work on it. So I work on it daily. I listen to meditation before I go to bed in the morning. I listen to audiobooks on my way to work. I have hundreds of audiobooks on Audible on my phone. I just make it a habit to subscribe and be a guest, like on shows like yours, where I can listen to what other guests are, because you can learn from everybody, even if it's not your core competency. If you're not exposed to new things, then you live in a bubble. And if you don't get out there and listen to different types of music and drive a different way to work and be innovative, right? I mean, one of the things we talked about was tenacity, resilience, and innovation in the intro. And if you really want to innovate, you have to be able to take risks. My risk factor ability is much higher than a lot of people. So there are things that I do that people were like, man, I would never do that. Where to me, it's just normal. You know, it's just like jumping out of an airplane. I've never parachuted. I would. I haven't ever done it. I'm sure there's listeners that have. But if you talk to some people, they would never do it. They would just give you all the reasons why they wouldn't do it. And sure, there's risk. Yes, you could die. Well, you can die walking across the street. You can die shaking hands with someone nowadays. Like, you don't know, right?
So I'm looking at some of the comments. Tom Morris says, we all love Ford already. And we also have to agree about Fred. So, you know, poor Fred is just getting, he's getting such a poor, a poor performance review here on Corona TV. And he adds, and Tom is our resident philosopher, he said the Latin etymology of tenacity is persistence in holding firm, originally from ten in Latin to stretch. That's another interesting use case or application, right? You don't stretch yourself, quite frankly, it's the same thing like building muscle, right? You don't build muscle without tearing it and breaking it down first. So breaking it down and tearing it is almost an interesting part of this rebuilding, one step back to take two steps forward. So that's another interesting way to think about tenacity. And we need to be tenacious. There's tenacious D, I'll be tenacious J, you can be, tenacious F. But this is a word that I really feel we need to start to elevate in these conversations.
Yeah, and that term was given to me by multiple clients over the years. So how that got into my bio was actually clients saying, I love your tenacious ability to, and I was like, tenacious? I didn't even know what it meant. I'm like, I'm Googling it, looking at what it was. I knew what the concept of the word was, but not to the depth of what they were saying. And I've always been coined with taking complicated subjects and making them easy or to understand, which, during keynote presentations or live stream events or books or audios or learning management, whatever the medium is, because I've had to do that. Like I've had to go into complicated situations, whether it's, let's say, finances. And, when I first had my first $1 million year in revenue, I went to my controller and I said, hey, I made $1 million. I was all proud. I made $1 million. And she said, hold on there, Skippy. You sold $1 million, but you are $150,000 in debt, and you took home $16,000 as an income. Like, you don't be so proud about what you sold. It's what you keep. And at that point, I was in my 20s. I was very young, and I was like, holy crap! It's not what you make; it's what you keep. Now, I didn't think about that. I didn't understand, chart of accounts and cash flow and balance sheets and income statements and inventory turns and ratios. I didn't know any of that. I was just an entrepreneur trying to start my business. And so, you have to either learn, grow, or you die. I mean, that's it. But if you just sit in the middle of the road, and if you don't have an opinion and you're going to get run over, pick a side, pick a lane, and just make sure, is what you're doing good for you and good for others? And that's the level I look at is what I'm doing. Like today on the show, I want it to be good for me, but I also want it to be good for others. If it was just good for me and not good for the others, well, then that's not congruent with my mindset.
I want to talk a little bit about growth and in context of stretch, in context of persistence. Now, you'll see in the background, we have the glorious ant. An ant that is, I think there is this one ant that can lift, 100 to 150 times its own body weight. But there is another insect that has become my favorite. It is my spirit animal, and it is the assassin bug. Have you ever heard of the assassin bug?
No, not. I probably watched Discovery Channel or the Animal Channel or something.
Look at it. Just look at it. Look at those. I don't know what they are, teeth or etc. Why the assassin bug is my favorite is two reasons. Now, when I wrote Built to Suck, my latest book, I spoke about the survival instinct. And from survival to thrival, right? Thrival is growth, but embracing your mortality and being a survivalist, to me, is about feeling truly alive. Now, survival is based on two things: self-preservation, which is don't kill me, and adaptation, which is I'm going to kill you. And the assassin bug does two things. One is it actually secretes a toxin into its victim that liquefies its victim's innards, and then it sucks it out and basically takes the carcass, the shell of the victim, and wears it on its back as a trophy. But the reality is what's happening is, number one, the assassin bug has actually adapted itself. Even from an evolutionary standpoint, what's really happening is, one, there is protection in terms of the fact that you got to get through the shell in order to get to the bug. But there's adaptation too, which is the fact that when you see a bug with a bigger shell, you know that one has got a lot more trophies, and you're going to probably stay away from that. And so I wanted to use that in context, which is, to me, the prime directive is growth. You know, you said it best. If you're not growing, you are dying. How do you see growth as this imperative, and kind of factoring in this idea of, you know, live to see another day, survive, but ultimately that is a precursor to the grand prize, which is thrival?
Okay, so a lot to unpack there, like you said. So I'll share a quick little story with you. So I'm 59 years old right now. I lost my son to cancer in 2017 after 18 months of fight.
Wow.
Now we're not. This isn't a drama thing. There's a lesson here. So just stay with me, everybody. So during that time, you know, he played hockey and he had lots of friends and he was a great kid. And every parent's going to say that, right? But he really did have hundreds of people with him throughout the journey. When we finally realized that, you know, the cancer was taken out after chemo and therapy and or stem cell and radiation and everything that we went through, you know, his body just wasn't going to make it. And we knew it. And we knew he had a few days left. And so everybody was there and he was making jokes. We would think he was going to die. He would say, "I'm dead. Good night." We would stay there all night long. He'd wake up and he'd say, "Hey, I'm still here." The nurse would come in and he'd say, "Hey, you want to go to Outback?" Like, he was joking all the way to the end. And the last day I was with him, you know, I was trying to be strong for him and I was holding his hand and he was getting weaker and I was getting sad and I turned away and I just lost it. I finally realized the gravity of the situation, that look, he's dying, like he's going to die right now. So I turn around and I'm crying. I wipe my eyes and I'm holding his hand. And I said, "It's okay, Logan, I'm here." And he struggles to breathe and he takes a deep breath. And then he takes a second breath. And on his third breath, he says, "Cry, baby." And of course, everybody in the room just butts out laughing. Of course, yeah, here I'm crying and he's dying, right? But my point is, even in that journey, the lesson that I learned about, the growth lesson, was perspective. He never complained. He never said, "Why me?" He just fought to the end. And then he just said, "Okay, you know, this is the journey I'm on." So the lesson here isn't about sympathy. I mean, that's not why I'm sharing this story. I'm not, you know, one of the things you never do as a guest is use these mediums for therapy. No, this isn't therapy. The lesson is back to what you said about growth. So there's going to be things in your life. So I celebrate his memory. I laugh about it every day. I listen to that and I think, you know, am I just going to be a crybaby? Am I going to pick up myself and do what I need to do? Am I going to write that blog? Am I going to finish that contract or call that client or call that friend or just like you said today, National Spouses Day. So thanks. Now I've got a new honeydew list I'm going to have to do. But back to the key point of the question of growth, the opportunities are there. Everybody, I don't care where you are on your journey, what nationality you live, where you live in the world. And I realize there's that, you know, that could be anywhere, but there is an opportunity if you take personal accountability. But it starts with the decision. Your growth starts with the decision that you're going to, you know what you say, feed the good wolf, not feed the bad wolf. And that's not my story. That's been used for millions of years or hundreds of years. But, you know, feed that positive soul in you and the opportunities will come. But you have to become the type of person that's going to attract those opportunities. So if you want a spouse or a partner or a, you know, a job or anything, you've got to ask yourself, who would I have to become to do that? For me, growing up poor and growing up in the projects of North Minneapolis, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to have my own car. And I wanted to prove all those people wrong that told me you're going to die before you're 25. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm going to show you. And that is where the tenacity came from, which was, you know, I used it to fuel me and motivate me to grow. And then, you know, just like my son dying, you know, it happened. I celebrate him. And, you know, but he's in my memory. But the memory is, how do I approach my life like he did, even though he was 7 years old when he passed? That to me was a lesson in itself. The fact that how he handled adversity. And then you got people who something small happens and they make it the, you know, a 10-alarm fire when it's really insignificant. Like I've got 800 emails in my inbox. I mean, we've been on the show now for a while. We're going to have the after show coming up. We're going to start on Zoom and then go to Clubhouse. By the time I'm done, there's going to be 1,500 emails. But are they really that big a deal in the scheme of things? No, but there could be one or two gems in there, right? So you don't know. But if you're open to it, the opportunities are there. So, I mean, I know that we're covering a lot of things, but if someone said, what are 3 tips? I'd say work on your mindset, you know, ask better questions, And I would say make a success library and put whoever you want in it. Like, sure, you can get our books and if it's business, but there are plenty of great things. Or just if you don't have the funds right now, go to YouTube, but just be careful who you listen to. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. You know, and I'm going to say this, it's politically incorrect, but you know, you don't go to a broke person to become rich, and you don't go to an overweight person to become skinny. But you can go to an overweight person to become rich. So I'll take that overweight, you know, moniker on my own. But, you know, I'm just tired of people being victims, and you know, I don't want to participate in that. So it's like when the recession hit in 2008, I just said I'm not participating. It's just like you said on the show with your guests, you know, don't participate in the drama that we're all facing right now. Take due diligence, but don't live there. Don't focus on it.
I will say that the word, by the way, due diligence is a terrible phrase, because it's very hard to roll off the tongue.
Yeah, it is.
I have to think of do the due diligence. You know, Ford, you've really, and I know you're like, hey, listen, it's not a sympathy. I get it, but you've had tremendous adversity in your life, tremendous. You know, from just what you've shared, which I didn't know about you, from being an orphan, growing up poor, having those dreams, aspirations, ambition, hunger. You know, that is the purpose. That you know, clearly, tenacity was part of your DNA. This will to succeed, this will to further yourself. I'm also reminded by something that Tom Morris, one of our regulars, previous guest on the show, philosopher, says. He says, the worse things get, or the darker things get, the more optimistic I become. But you are, in addition to humble, you're unbelievably optimistic, tempered with a little bit of pragmatism, which is, I'm not just going to sell you babies and bunnies and puppies. I'm also going to tell you to get off your ass and stop feeling sorry for yourself and make it happen, because you know, there is so much opportunity out there. But this is hard for people that are stuck in a rut, that are just like, that's easy for him to say, he made $1 million, etc. How does one shock themselves or get shocked out of this quicksand of, you know, and it's everything from feeling sorry for yourself, which is not okay, to depression, which you know, you can't blame someone for. How do you find the inspiration to pick yourself up and to figure out that first step to move forward?
Okay, so first you have to identify where you are now. If you're in a hole, stop digging. If you're in a negative situation, you're going to have to be a critical thinker. It starts with critical thinking, and critical thinking means literally being objective. You also have to want something more than what you currently have. And unfortunately, a lot of people are safe. So for example, you know, me, I used to be an Olympic caliber athlete. I was a speed skater. I went to the Olympic Training Center in 84 and 87. I was a pro cyclist. I was 168 pounds. I created a sporting goods. Yeah, there you go. I created a sporting goods company and started working, you know, 80 hours a week, as any entrepreneur is going to do. And I went from 168 to 268 in about 10 years. And then I found myself looking in the mirror going, what the hell happened to this guy? Like, seriously. So now I'm back down to 240, and I have my goal is, you know, baby steps, and we'll talk more about baby steps in a little bit. But, you know, where it starts is being a critical thinker. I had to ask myself, how did I get here? I got here. Actually, I was in a race similar to what you got right there. But how did I get there? Well, I got there by eating to feel better, stress eating, or using DoorDash, or not walking enough, sitting. Like, I mean, when you're cycling, you know, 400 miles a week, or, you know, now I'm doing about 100 miles a week, although with the rain, I haven't been gone that much, but I usually average around 60 to 100 miles a week. And if you're on Strava, anybody listening, go to Strava and follow me. I'd love to follow you. I'm always interested in new followers. So if you don't know what Strava is, just forget it. Don't worry about that. You can Google it. But it starts really with being a critical thinker it starts making a dream board or a goal list and really thinking about what do you really want to do, have, and become. It's not about money. It's not. Money will come if you add the value. So don't ask yourself, how do I make more money? Ask yourself, how do I add more value? It's the same reason why when someone comes to work for me, I tell them, look, that you can set your own course. You can as long as you're adding value, you'll have a job. You're going to make mistakes. I'm not perfect. The environment's not perfect. I'm a type A personality. And I'm like, why the hell did that happen? And, I can be high and I can have low lows, but it really starts with getting a clear vision of what you want. It starts with taking, and this is what I'm going to say. I know we were going to get here, but I believe in thinking big. My license plate on my car is Think Big, THNKBG. But the problem with that, and this is what I want to share with someone, it's a nuance. I was always taught think big, and I did it. And I've got my dream board, and I have the pictures of things that I want to do, have, and become. But I would see things on those dream boards that a year would go by or 2 years would go by, and they weren't done. And I didn't understand it until a nuance was shared. And I don't know what podcast it was on. I don't remember who said it, but someone said, and again, you guys listening can put it in the comments. I'm sure everybody said, but they said think big, but they said you also need to think small so you actually take action. And since they did that, I'm going to show you my phone here. I'm going to see if I can get my home screen to be off so it doesn't have any notices. And on my phone, if we can it actually says, and I think you can see if it focused, think big, think small, take action. So, because I want to be reminded, I'll go ahead and share it again. So it's going to be, let's see if it gets to focus. There we go. FordSakesPrimeConcepts.com. Think big, think small, take action, because that's really the key. So I want you to be a big thinker. I want you to think, do your dream board. What's your ideal life? But then I want you to think small. What are you going to do today? So congratulations. You've participated in personal and professional growth. You're a subscriber, hopefully, to the show. You're going to share it, link, and comment. You're participating. But I want you to take something we've said today and actually apply it. Just a baby step. Just a baby step. And so for me, after I'm done with the show, I have a stand-up desk. I'm not standing right now in studio, but I'll walk around. I'm gonna do some push-ups. I'm gonna do some sit-ups. Even though it may not be, I don't have time for an hour workout, just do something to continue to move forward. And that's the key. That's really the key. If you're stuck in a rut, be realistic and stop. If you're surrounded by a bunch of people that are supporting you being stuck in a rut and supporting your victimhood, you need to get rid of those people. And fine. I'm giving you legal advice. Get a divorce. Quit your job, go do something that's going to feed your soul, because life's too short and you don't know how much time you have left. We aren't guaranteed anything, especially with what's going on in the country and COVID and everything else, or whatever country you're listening to, right? It's going on around the world. You don't know how much time you have left. That's why I live my life like I'm doing it, because live now. Plan for the future, but what are you waiting for? If you've got something you really want to do, go out and do it. And I'm giving you permission. Like, here's your permission to win right now. I'm giving you permission to go follow your dreams, whatever they are. But just remember, it should be good for you and good for other people. Like, we're not asking you to do something negative, do something positive.
Ford, there are a bunch of comments which I think are interesting, because they're either riffs or builds or maybe kind of preconceived ideas. The one is, of course, we've heard, think global, act local. But in this case, as opposed to think big, think small, take action, this one is think big, act small. And then Manif says, think big, execute small.
Yeah, they're all derivatives and they all apply. The key is have that big vision, apply it to yourself and assimilate it to what works for you. Those are all wonderful comments. I love the fact that we're sharing those perspectives, because that just shows you. But each of those people who are sharing those perspectives, they're tuning into this show. They're going to be on Zoom on the after call. They're going to follow us on Clubhouse. They're going to participate in this journey. But everybody has problems and crap that happens and things that happen in our lives. And I want to just comment one last thing. Because you made a comment. You said, "Oh, you've been through tremendous things." Look, I've never missed a meal. I was homeless for a while, and I lived in a Goodwill dumpster. And there's been times where I didn't make a lot of money. And when I was 12 years old, I carried a 9mm. From the time I was 12 to 18, I carried a 9mm. I didn't do anything. I was just a punk. I didn't shoot anybody, but I was scared, and I thought I needed it to be, but then I realized that, what am I doing? Like, this is really stupid. But at the time, You couldn't have convinced me it was stupid. You couldn't have convinced me on anything because I was thinking I'm going to die. I need to protect myself. I'm in a dangerous environment and I'm going to survive. And then you learn that, oh, well, there's other ways to survive. I remember, Joseph, I couldn't eat one day, and I literally went to the back of a grocery store. And back in the day, most of you are too young to remember this, but you used to get money by returning bottles. You could take bottles into a store, and they would give you a refund, a cash. I don't even know. It wasn't recycling back then. It was just they would reuse the bottles. And I remember I couldn't eat, and I went behind a grocery store, and I actually carried their returns from the back of the grocery store, and I returned them in from the front, and got like $8 and then ate. But I'm not proud of that. I don't think that that's good. I'm not proud saying I carried a gun when I was little, by any means stretch of the imagination. But I just don't want your circumstances to define you. Go out and starting today, go do something different or apply what you currently have. And if you're in a job, like your job or get the hell out of it, and I know that sounds, I know my employees are listening to this and my staff's listening to this, but they know that's how I think. I want them to be happy. If they want something, let me know. But it's like lead seller, get out of the way. A friend of mine, Ron Carr, wrote that book, Lead Seller, Get Out of the Way. And it's like, that's really the key, lead or take action or get the hell out of my way.
Yeah, but even saying that, what you just said publicly, saying I know my employees, what it really does is it just comes right back to you. It is your way of self-policing. It is your way of keeping yourself honest by saying, if I raise the bar and certainly do it publicly, then I have to live up to that bar. Otherwise, I'm gonna hit that bar or miss that bar, but certainly not exceed that bar.
You have people who weaponize it. Some people will weaponize it, and they'll point out one flaw or one thing you did or a misspelling or something. And I'll give an example. I was on a show, and the listener could be here. I don't care. I won't mention his name. But recently, this weekend, I was on a Legends Summit. It was an event with 18 other speakers, and Ken Blanchard, and the one that was before was Tom Ziegler. And Brian Tracy and Les Brown and Patricia Fripp and some pretty big people in this world. And there was someone who messaged me through LinkedIn with a scathing message, which basically was, hey, I believe in you, but I looked at some of the other speakers that are on that platform and I'm better than they are. And it was just this lack mentality BS because he was jealous that he wasn't one of the legends. Right. And so I just thought to myself, isn't that an interesting perspective? He's all supposed, and he was a leadership speaker. Like he was supposed to be about leadership and growth. And I thought, boy, you really aren't walking your talk. Like
I want to, by the way, give you a story back in return, which I think epitomizes what I hope is growth, but also another huge part of what has happened in this year or in this period is self-awareness. People are so much more. They learn. That is a phrase. That is a beautiful phrase, which I hope never becomes a cliche. So going back to that beautiful story of yours, I used to get pissed off to no end when I wasn't included in the best thinkers and the social media influencers and the thought leaders to watch and which, by the way, most of them are all just link baiting exercises.
Right.
Clearly. But you know what I do now? I go, fantastic. 20 most influential B2B people to watch in 21. I'm just going to go right down the list and invite them onto the show.
Right.
What a great, easy source of guests, guest outreach for me. And that's how, it is in many respects. We have to it's Tai Chi. It's the ability to, much like that. There she is. This idea of being able to use the force to your advantage, as opposed to always trying to, cut against the grain, or in this case, swim against the current, because you will drown.
Yes, absolutely. I think that, and it's even me. When I get introduced, I've made millions of dollars. I haven't managed my money that well. If I'd managed my money the way I should have, I'd be living on an island somewhere. I've made the money, and the false presence or the false mindset that has happened, growing up, I didn't have financial management. No one taught me to save money. And I'm not being a victim. Okay. So let's make sure you don't hear the victimhood there. But along the way, that wasn't something I learned because, my keynote fee is $25,000 when I go speak at an organization. I'm a Hall of Fame keynote speaker. Now my fee is small compared to a lot of my clients that are 50 and 75. So here I'm thinking I'm all that in a bag of chips because my fee went from, $5,000 as a keynoter to 7,500 to 10 to 12,500 to 15 to 25. Well, there are people that are $125,000, an hour. It's not about the money, but there were times when I would see what someone else was earning. I'll give you an example real quick. It's public knowledge. Les Brown, I managed Les Brown from 95 to 98 when he was married to Gladys Knight. So at the time I was speaking for $5,000, but I was booking him for 30. Well, I just talked to him 3 days ago. His fee is now $75,000. So there's always going to be someone that's had it worse. There's always someone that's going to make more money. I mean, look at Elon Musk and these. I mean, look, I'm not missing a meal, but I'm not retiring and buying a jet and flying around the world. But
I think there's something. Let me see if I can try and connect all the dots in the time we have left. There is this idea that, first of all, when you look in the mirror, success begins with you.
Yes.
In addition to that, there is the ability to. I loved what you said, which is you said that this idea of objectivity. You spoke about perspective, but you also spoke about this idea of objectivity, that you've got to be able to be realistic. You've got to be able to be pragmatic. It is a dynamic conversation because you've got to be able to, as you said, look back and say, how did I get here? Because you're never going to figure out what that first step is going to, require if you aren't able to really put everything into frame. And I was looking at the comments, and Tom said a football analogy: move the ball down the field. It doesn't have to all be touchdown passes. Move the ball, right? Moving the chains. But then there's another legendary quote from which we all know, right? Vince Lombardi,
right,
who said, "In all my time, I never lost a single game. I just ran out of time." And it's actually why I said in my soliloquy, I said, success is never guaranteed, but it is inevitable, which of course is a bit of a little play on words.
Right.
And, it made me think of, I always have a quote for my guests. This is your quote today. And then, of course, let's see if you know who said it. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up.
I don't have the name of it, but I've definitely heard that multiple times.
Well, this was, speaking of inventors.
Well, I've said things like that many times. So I don't know.
You have 3 patents.
Yeah.
This guy might have a few more patents.
Yeah, Edison. Oh, there we go. I was just listening to a story, a podcast I was listening to this morning was just talking about Thomas Edison, and they said that he actually wasn't as brilliant as what he gets credit for in his biography, but because he understood how to take credit for it and claim it, not in a negative way, everybody. I'm not taking anything away. He's brilliant like that. But it was the ability for him to see what other people didn't see. So it wasn't just about the genius invention. It was about pulling people together and building and really doing it. So I think that's amazing.
Well, I would tell you before we do move on over, whether it's the Zoom after show or the Clubhouse room or whatever the hell they call it.
I think we should start on Zoom for a few minutes and then we can jump over to Clubhouse.
Well, we'll do that in a second, but first you have to answer the Corona question with the Super Bowl coming up. What's the greatest Super Bowl commercial of all time?
I really think the classic, which is, the Apple TV commercial, was one of the ones that I think a lot of people would probably, think about when they at their first instinct. There's been several. But it's amazing how that medium, again, as a marketer looking at it, right. How do you create emotion and energy and create brand awareness? And they did that.
1984. What a commercial that was. Ford sakes, not Fred sucks, but Ford sakes. Business growth innovator, franchise keynote speaker, live stream virtual presentations like you've never seen before. a man who accelerates your marketing and sales like no one has ever done before. I'm sounding like someone else at the moment. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. We won't give you Twitter and all the other ones. We'll just say connect with him on LinkedIn. But more importantly, here are a bunch of things that you might want to do as well. Watch these videos, his videos on Fortify.tv. This is your success library. Today's episode and all of these video vignettes, this is part of how you stock up your success library. If you do want to hire him, we know what his rate is now.
Well, that's just the speaking rate. In sales, you say, this is for everybody. This is a sales tip while he's doing his closing. I have packages that fit most reasonable budgets. There we go.
All right. So just be reasonable with him and he'll be reasonable back. Or you can even find out more about his agency at primeconcepts.com. This has been great. If there is one more learning to take away, it's now that we know that the man was packing, clearly from now, you don't call him Mr. Sachs. You call him Mr. Sakes, and you might just live to face another day. So from one badass to another, the final word goes, of course, to Mr. Chuck Norris. And I don't even know where he is. Oh, there he is, because I just moved a few videos around. Sorry, Chuck. Here you go.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
There you go. He was, he was a little hesitant. He was nervous because you once carried a gun. I will see you guys tomorrow. And right now we're going to hop on over to the Zoom After Show. Thank you for this. Was exactly as I expected it to be and more.
Excellent. I'll see you in a minute.
Thank you for watching Corona TV with your host, multiple author and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. Corona TV is the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. The after show on Zoom starts right now at bit.ly/Corona TV After Show. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show at coronatv.show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, text Corona TV to 66866 or visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.